Hello and welcome to a introductory Stellaris video. I have several friends who are either returning to the game or are new to the game, so I figured I would make a little video going through at least some of the basics of what I look through when I'm designing an empire and then for the first few years of playing. So yeah, let's get right in. So the first thing I always sit down and I think about when I'm creating an empire is I think about what civics, ethics, and origin I want, and I kind of build around from there. So let's say I want to do a more military focused empire. I want to have a lot of vassals, and I want to have a pretty strong military power. First thing, obviously, you're gonna want militarist, probably. Um, yeah, I won't be going into the hive mind and machine intelligences um, during this video. The main thing to keep in mind during those is they trade off a couple mechanics in like trade and other things like that, and they trade it in for a little bit of a simpler game, but also different. There are some benefits to them. It's a fairly different build though, and also Megacorps are probably the most different. They actually add a little bit that you need to manage mechanically, but I won't be going into those in this video. But yeah, so let's say you want to do something militarist. Another good one to go with if you're going for fast early expansion would be Xenophobe. Obviously, if you're going for a role play, that kind of puts you at ends with other players, but it gives you a pretty decent reduction on the influence cost and of expansion and your pop growth speed, both of which are very useful early, and the pop growth speed is good throughout the game. Um, let's see. I I have a I lean towards being able to do a psionic ascension, so I like spiritualist over materialist. But if you're looking for tech rush, or if you really aren't into the psionic ascension, materialist is probably the way to go. In between egalitarian and authoritarian, you can kind of go either way. Um, you can already have slaves if you've gone xenophobe. They have to be alien species, but you can do that through that way. But authoritarian allows you to have even your own or your own species as slaves. Um, but typically the bonuses on these are not exactly what I build around. They are they're definitely powerful. I just tend to not use them as often, mostly because they limit your government options, which makes some sense. They're probably the strongest leaning towards different government types. But let's go materialist. You could always go fanatic in something as well. But I find that it's nice to have three, and then later, if you want, you can hunker down on one by trying to promote a certain faction or stuff like that. But having three gives you a little bit more adaptive approach, and it also opens up more options in civics. Um, yeah, let's see. So let's go to authority next. The the democratic and oligarchic um, authorities both give you elections, which can be pretty nice if you want to be able to handpick your ruler. That typically gives you buffs that you can have a little bit more say on. It also, they give their office goals basically, and if you meet those, you'll get a unity boost. I think that's for both of them. I know it's for Democratic. I would assume it's for Oligarchic as well. Um, Dictatorial allows you to do an election, but it's only when your ruler dies. Imperial has no election. Your ruler gets picked for you. Also, let's see. Democratic, the automatic resettlement chance is great. Obviously, there's other ways to boost that, so it's for me, it's not something that I really care about too much because generally the transit hubs do that enough for me, but that is something to keep in mind. Faction unity gain, again, it's nice. Having extra unity, especially with this most recent update, unity is good to have. But it's only from your factions, so if you're going oligarchic, you're going to want to be keeping your factions happy as a pretty high priority, which might be something you want to do. Empire size effect, obviously that's just a flat thing. There aren't really many ways to change it, so this one is a pretty powerful option. As well as Imperial power projection, that actually gives you more influence based on your fleet capacity compared to your sprawl. If your fleet capacity is over your sprawl, you'll get the full power projection, which at base is 2, but for Imperial is 3, meaning you'll get 2 influence per month if your fleet is larger than your sprawl, or 3 if you're Imperial, 3 influence a month, which I used to go Imperial all the time just because I didn't want to have to care about my ruler, but influence, it's really powerful early game, but it kind of, at least for me, I've felt that it kind of falls off later because of the fact that edicts are now influence based, or unity based, not influence based anymore. So I kind of tend to stay away from Imperial now, but if you're looking for fast expansion early, again, which this build is kind of going for, Imperial might be the way to go to get that extra unity income, or influence income. Wow, I'm getting those mixed up quite often. Okay, we'll get back into civics in a little bit, but next I tend to do my origin. So, let's see, we are going militarist, xenophobe, and materialist. So, there's quite a few here that aren't really options. Mechanist pairs pretty well with materialist, especially if you're wanting to do the mechanical ascension. That's a good option. It also makes your robot upkeep lower, which again, robots are going to be a major part of your population, so if they cost less to upkeep, that's nice. Syncretic evolution. I tend to do this one if I am going a more authoritarian materialist. It doesn't go against syncretic evolution, but having an extra pop, generally you're going to want to go, well, I guess you could still go, generally if you're going syncretic evolution, you want to have 2 distinct species that are working 2 different things. And because of that, you want to be able to modify their traits, so you're generally going to go the biological ascension path. But materialist doesn't lock you into having a robotic ascension, it just helps it. So there's not necessarily a downside to going syncretic evolution, you're just not getting everything you could out of the syncretic, or out of going materialist because of your robots. Life seeded. This one's generally really good if you're trying to do like a 1 planet challenge or something like that, or if you're doing the what is it called? The idyllic bloom civic, which is species dependent. But if you're going that, you can make other planets Gaia worlds pretty easy without needing to get the Ascension perk. So that's decent. The large size is also really nice, but the Gaia world preference makes expansion pretty difficult early. And even if you're going Idyllic Bloom, you still have to colonize the planet and build up the 4 stages of the Gaia Seeders before you convert it to a Gaia world. So it's an option, but generally you're going to go very, very tall if you're going life seeded, at least early. You're not going to want to expand very far because you're not going to be able to colonize those planets for some time. Post-apocalyptic, it's a pretty decent start. It pairs really well with going fungoid or plantoid and going radiotrophic. Just half your food, or basically reduce your food costs by half, and as you can see here, extra pop growth on 2 worlds and extra habitability. But you have to find 2 worlds unless you go something that allows you to go apocalyptic bombardment, which typically you have to be going a non-diplomatic route like the Fanatic Purifiers, or you have to become the Crisis Ascension perk, and then you have to become Crisis level 2, I think, 2 or 3 to be able to do the Armageddon bombardment. I think I said apocalyptic. It's Armageddon. Let's see, Remnants. Remnants pretty strong. You get a relic world, which gives you. It's not a relic world that you can upgrade to a Ecumenopolis, but it does give you a few early boosts to technology as you clear out some of the tile blockers. So that gives you a nice tech boost early game, but beyond that, it's pretty much a prosperous unification start. Shattered Ring. Shattered Ring used to be really strong. I haven't actually played around with it since it got changed so that there's more segments, but more districts, but the districts do less. So that's something to keep in mind. Obviously, you can house a lot of pops on a Shattered Ring world, which is nice, and it also gives you the other 2 sections that you can upgrade later once you get the technology. So it's still a pretty decent start, but it's definitely not as strong as it used to be. Before, I would say that Shattered Ring was probably by far the best start in the game, but now it's pretty even with the other ones. It might give you a little bit of an advantage if you're trying to go megastructures early because you have one already. It gives you a higher chance of getting the research. But other than that, it's an interesting start, but the preference, again, makes it a little bit more difficult to expand. Void Dwellers. This is a very specialized origin. You start with habitats. You can get really into micromanaging your habitats and specializing them. I really like this start, but it takes a little bit more work to get working, and you can also go very tall with this, only taking a few systems, but making sure every planet on those systems has a habitat on it. However, the habitats won't be working with the new orbital rings that are coming out, so that is something to keep in mind, is you won't be able to boost your habitats with the rings. Those can only go on a planet, and they are mutually exclusive, so you can only have one or the other. But yeah, Void Dweller is definitely a strong start. Your alloys are going to hurt you pretty early, so I generally want to rush alloys when I'm going Void Dwellers, just so you can expand faster. But that also means you'll be putting more work into expanding than maybe building up your fleet, which can cause your military to be a little bit weak, especially if you're putting all your alloys into building habitats instead of building ships. Scion, starting as a vassal of a fallen empire. me and my friends are planning to do a LAN, and we won't be doing any starts where you get an AI ally. We'll be just doing players, so Scion won't work for that. But Scion's generally pretty strong because your your Fallen Empire will eventually give you a fleet that early game you can use to your advantage and be pretty strong. Galactic Doorstep, pretty simple start, but you get a gateway in your home system, and eventually you get the technology to upgrade or to fix that gateway much quicker than you normally would. So this really gives you yeah, opportunities with gateways earlier, which again might not be necessary with the new highway system that's coming out in in the upcoming expansion, Overlord. Yeah. So it's a pretty decent start. There's a few events with the gateway as well. Gives you a little bit of research, stuff like that. Otherwise, not too interesting. Tree of Life, very good for hive mind. You have to be hive mind for it. Basically boosts all your colonies, but if you are constantly being bombarded, you're going to lose your trees, and that makes your people get a ton of debuffs. So you have to be able to defend your empire, even if people aren't trying to make claims on you. If they bombard your planets, they can kill your tree, and it's crippling. On the Shoulder of Giants, you get a interesting archaeology chain. I think kind of like the Remnants, you get a few nice little boosts, but overall nothing too major changing about it. Calamitous Birth. Basically, I would advise, obviously you have to be lithoid for this. I would advise only taking this if you're going for the massive crater change on your planet, your homeworld, which gives you a pretty major buff early. But the meteorite colony ships, unless you're sending them to a planet that already has high habitability for you, they kind of just ruin any planet you send them to, even though the lithoids have high habitability modifier. They are a little bit faster and quite a bit cheaper than normal ships, but the habitability decrease is pretty big unless you're going to send it to a planet that you already would have had like 70, 80 habitability on. You also can't really print units anymore because you're sending your last pop off of a planet will cost about 200 influence, I think, which is not cheap. And also, it doesn't create the lithoid monolith tile blockers every time you hit a planet with the colony ship now, which means you literally get one pop, and if you're going the expansion tree, you'll get 2 pops every time you do that, which 200 influence for 2 pops, not the best investment. Plus, if you're trying to print, you're just going to ruin a planet. Resource consolidation, pretty strong start for machine intelligence. The machine world will give you a bunch of buffs, but it does remove all the resources in your home system. So you're not going to have many mining stations or anything like that until you expand. So that's something to keep in mind. Common Ground and Hegemon, both interesting, but they start with 2 AI allies, so we won't be doing that for our land, but in general they're interesting. You start with the Federation tradition, so that's nice. They're kind of more flavor than anything. Doomsday doesn't really give you any sort of benefit. It's a challenge, which it says in the description. I'll kind of glaze over it because you're not going to go that if you're wanting to be competitive, unless you're trying to give some sort of handicap to other people you're playing with. Lost Colony, again, spawns another or AI. Um, it's, again, a kind of a flavor origin more than a really strategic one, so I'm going to kind of go past that one. Necrophage. Necrophages are really good if you're trying to have a very specialized home species and maybe a bunch of slaves. So it would go well with either xenophobe or authoritarian. I think you might even have to have... No, you just can't have xenophile or egalitarian. But yeah, it allows you to convert some pops slowly over time to your home, your your primary species, but you can't re or procreate normally, or can you? They're just very slow. Yeah, they get a very big debuff to pop growth speed, but they can if they're your only species, which generally you want to avoid. It also modifies your planets you can expand to, your starting planets, your guaranteed habitable planets, I mean, to be primitive civilizations, which means they already have pops on them, which is a pretty decent early start. Generally, if you're going necrophage, people are not going to like you, or just because you are constantly relying on other people's pops income to grow your own pops. It pairs very well with barbaric despoilers, just because you can um, steal pops to add to your already growing population. Clone Army. Clone Army is pretty interesting. You get a very fast early growth speed and some decent buffs to your admirals and your ships, but you're going to be limited to probably 2 or 3 planets with your home species. You can then choose to go down 2 paths, one which eventually allows you to procreate but gets rid of the ancient clone vats, so basically you kind of use them to get a very early lead and then you transition out of that lead into a slower pop growth, which is, you still get a pretty decent buff to your fire rate, but it's not quite as good. Or you can enhance it, and by then you're probably depending on some other population as well to be filling out your planets, because you're only going to have 100 pops max of your clones. Here be dragons, pretty interesting start. It's very safe. At least early game, you're going to have a dragon defending your home system. Later in the game, you get dragonlings or hatchlings, something like that. Baby dragons, essentially, which are pretty decent ships, but it also puts a target on your back because people want that, the dragon scale armor plating, which you can get from killing the space dragon. So they might actually target your home system just so they can get that research. You also get a starting living metal node nearby, which is beneficial if you're wanting that for some of the benefits you can get from that, like the faster megastructure building later in the game. Ocean Paradise, I really like this start. Pairs very well with the Angler's Civic. Gives you a very large starting planet, but you get no guaranteed habitable worlds. Instead, they're frozen. It basically, you want to go the Hydro Ascension perk because of that. And yeah, it's kind of like the Gaia World start, the life seeded, but it you have to, where the life seeded, you can get other pops and species to get, because everyone can settle on a Gaia World. So maybe you want to focus more on getting the migration treaties so you can get other pops to colonize planets. Here, you don't really have that option. You want to get pops with the ocean world preference, and it also makes non-ocean worlds pretty negative for you. Those are all the origins. Let's see. We're going a military um, materialist focus. So I would recommend Mechanist. It's pretty good. Prosperous Reunification, always a decent start. It's not really anything special, but if you're not sure what to do, it's a safe bet to go with. Let's see. Other ones I would recommend with this kind of build up. I would think you could probably pull off, let's see. Well, okay. Prosperous Unification, Shattered Ring, Remnants, Galactic Doorstep, and Shoulders of Giants. Those are all pretty neutral starts. I guess even Here Be Dragons. You can kind of go those with anything. Yeah, you can. Those are kind of all safe bets for any kind of build. But if I'm trying to do this, I would either think, if I'm really leaning into this kind of build, I would go either Mechanist or maybe Necrophage or Clone Army. I think for this video I'll go into Mechanist just because the Necrophage and Clone Army will add some mechanics that won't be general enough for all playstyles, and I kind of want to be able to show off general stuff and maybe not specialized stuff. I might cover that in a later video. Yeah, so yeah, I'll go Mechanist. Here, next I'll probably go into Civics. Let's see. We're going to want a pretty strong military. I've said that several times now. Let's see, Technocracy, always a pretty decent one. You get the extra research alternatives. You also get the Science Director, which gives you extra research instead of, well, not instead of, but alongside the Unity that the politician jobs usually would give. That goes pretty well with Materialist and with the Mechanist start, so I think I'll go that. Warrior Culture would be nice. It gets a lot of the focus away from consumer goods for Unity and amenities, and instead puts it on alloys, which is sometimes a good thing, sometimes a bad thing. It does allow you to focus your consumer goods primarily into research, but it also takes away alloys that you could be using for building ships, things like that. Yeah, so, but it also gives you naval capacity, so it's kind of a... I tend to pick this one up as my third Civic later in the game when you get the research to do that. Just because by then you actually have enough alloys to make use of it. Early game, you're not really going to have enough planets to make use of the buildings for naval capacity, and also your alloy production, you don't really want to tank that, especially if you're going with robots. Mining Guilds is a very bland Civic. Extra minerals for miners, boo-hoo. But if you get a lot of miners, it's pretty big, especially when you get modifiers to your production. So if you get 25%, and I think miners get like a base of, it's either 2 or 3 minerals, that would bump it up to 3 or 4, and then another 25%, that's either almost or is a completely extra mineral on top of that. So it's not something to scoff at, but I think I'll avoid it for now. Feudal Society, very good if you're looking to conquer a lot, especially early, because you want your vassals to be able to expand a little bit. If they don't expand, they're going to fall off pretty fast and basically become very dependent on you, but also not beneficial to you. They'll basically be a parasite. So allowing them to expand is good. So that if you're looking for early conquering, that's a good one. If you're looking for more of a mid-game conquering, Distinguished Admiralty might be a good one to go. I think I'll be going that for this build just because I don't think I'm going to be playing far enough that the feudal will be really taking place in the game. I don't think I'm going to play this all the way up to conquering an empire. Other things to keep in mind, I'm just going to do random stuff for names. This is just a demo video, not really. Generally, I would go into the names and care about it, but I'm just going to kind of randomly roll stuff. Traits are important to think about, and when going to traits, appearance actually does matter for a few things. If you go aquatic, no, aquatic doesn't necessarily give you the aquatic trait, so you don't have to go aquatic if you're looking for the aquatic trait. But if you go lithoid, you will get the lithoid trait, and fungoid and plantoid, those allow for these three here, the phototrophic, radiotrophic, and budding, which are pretty good. Budding is really good, especially if you're going a hive mind. Just because you get so many pops already, and they're all going to be of the same species, so might as well get extra pop growth on top of it. I like to pair that with a tree of life or something like that, just getting a ton of pops early. Also, you can't go a machine unless you go machine intelligence start, and lithoid will give you the lithoid traits, which I can show that real quick. This is a forced trait, and it will give you slower pop growth but higher habitability, so it's good for going wide. I think I'll avoid that here though, just because if you go lithoid, you're not really going to care about food, and I kind of want to showcase all the mechanics. So I haven't done all the aquatic species yet, so I'll just pick a portrait. Yeah, get rid of the lithoid. Okay, so we're going military focused. Very strong are very tempting to take, but army damage doesn't really matter. Sad to say it, but if you're at the point where your army numbers are too low, you just build 2 or 3 more. You don't. I mean, it's a nice bonus, but the resource output isn't high enough for me to really consider taking it. Let's see. I would say, let's see, rapid breeders. Rapid breeders is always a pretty strong one to take, especially since we're already going xenophobe. That's 10% growth speed plus another 10% growth speed. Very nice. Let's see. From here, you could just leave it at that. I tend to take a negative or 2. Sedentary, with the fact that we now have the automatic resettlement chance, it doesn't actually hurt as much. It might take a little bit more time, but that doesn't really matter. So that's generally one that I like to go for. Another one that could be nice to take. I mean, all of these can kind of go with stuff. Especially if you go fleeting, might as well stack slow learners on top of that. Especially if you're going to go robotic, eventually you'll drop these things. So maybe you want to just get as many pops as you can, and get that research going as fast as you can. So I might take the fleeting, or do I want fleeting, or you know what, I think well, it kind of depends. There is a strat where you send out your science ships with your actual researchers. You get them to, I think it's level 3, and then you swap them back. So if you were to do that, you would probably not want to go slow learners. You'd rather go fleeting or even decadent, especially if you're looking to enslave pops. Again, I don't think I'm going to play far enough into that, so I'm just going to go fleeting. Only one trait pick left and 0 points, so no matter what negative I take, I will then have 0 picks and an extra point, so it's kind of pointless going on from here. Appearances, again, don't matter. Name doesn't matter. Flag, there's a lot of stuff you can do with flags, but doesn't matter. Appearance doesn't matter. Ruler, name, all of this doesn't matter. I'm probably going to delete this empire after this video. General settings, I think the only thing I have bumped up here is habitable worlds just a little bit. I'll pump it down, or push it down. And crisis strength, I like to play on a little bit higher than default, generally even higher than 3, but since we're not going to get to the crisis, it doesn't even matter. I'll be going on Commodore just because I'm going to be focusing more on mechanics rather than, and I don't want the AI to really be a challenge. I generally play on Admiral or Grand Admiral, but I'll just do Commodore here just because I'm showing stuff. Guaranteed habitable worlds, I think is 1. I like to play with 2, just gets the expansion earlier, faster going. And xenocompatibility is just lag. It's nice if you really want it, but it's just lag, so I don't really go with it. And starting our game. Okay, so first things I like to do even before you start. Obviously picking research. If you get the chance, I always like to go with the percentage boosts early, unless you're really leaning into that military strength. I guess you could go with something else, but having 20% research boost for all the other researches just makes everything after it faster. So I like to go these first. The extra unity, these two are kind of both pretty optimal first picks. The unity obviously gets you traditions faster. The research gets you research faster. I'm gonna go with the unity here just because I want to be able to show off the traditions faster. So yeah. And here, both of these are pretty good to take. I'll just go with quantum theory for now. Science ship. I always like to queue up so since you can, here we can see both habitable worlds, I like to survey the highest, or the largest size one first, and then I like to branch off from that and immediately start looking for choke points where I can cut off and then colonize backwards, since I can guarantee that I'm going to be holding that system. Construction ship. For this, I always like to first get a mining station. You see, you start with 100 minerals, it costs 100 minerals to get the mining station down, and generally your expansion, either buildings on your home planet or building with your construction ship, is going to be limited by minerals in the early game. So it's best to get a boost to that. You could have gone a mining district, but these cost quite a bit more than the construction, as well as you still need the pops to work it. And we're already low on amenities, so getting a few clerks in might not be a bad idea. Still haven't unpaused. I like to go into ship design, immediately turn off the auto generate designs, and make a new design. The Corvette. Interceptor first. Missile boat will be better later game against the larger ships, because the missiles, you can just overwhelm a battleship and bypass its shields, plus with your high evasion, you'll generally be able to evade those. The picket ship, very good if they are going the hangar strat, where you just push out a bunch of small fighters, especially because you get a picket slot for one fleet cap, where on other ships you'd probably get 2 or 3 for much more fleet cap. So it's really good for countering hangar fleets. But interceptor first. I like to go mass driver and double red laser first, just because most ships are, or most empires are not going to invest the power for double deflectors early. Instead, they're probably going to go double armor, which laser will counter better. And reactor booster, it adds a little bit to the cost, but the power boost actually gives you a little bit of bonuses in evasion and speed and damage. It just gives you bonuses overall everywhere. So, yeah. Oh, and I just went double laser and deflector, and didn't go double deflector. So other empires are probably going to go double mass driver and single laser, where so your deflectors will actually be better against that. Auto upgrade. I don't know why you would ever want to not auto upgrade, but you can't, or it's an option. But I like to have it auto upgrade just so I don't have to come back every time I get a new research, and we'll save that. There is one strat where you create a new ship design and you give it nothing and you save that, and then you upgrade all your ships to that, and you get a bunch of alloys back, and then you sell those alloys, get a little bit of energy, convert that energy into minerals, and then you can use that to expand a little bit faster. You have to remember to swap it back so you can actually have a military fleet, but for me and for this video it's probably too much of a micro to really show, but it is something worth mentioning. I don't immediately upgrade because you're not really going to run into anything within your first probably at least year, generally 5 or 10 years. Let's see. Another thing to keep in mind is your policies. Yes, I like the mixed economy start. If you really want to specialize, you could go either way, but I like mixed economy. Expansionist is almost always the best one to go early, especially before you run into anyone. The other ones are kind of useless. Isolationist might not be, but yeah, the other ones are kind of useless unless you have met someone. Yeah, okay. So I've done that. I've used my minerals. Oh, last thing to keep in mind. I always rush a second science ship. You won't have the unity to hire on a second scientist for a couple months, but it's just something nice to do. Generally, I like to have 2 science ships and 1 construction ship. Only 1 construction ship because your influence income is not going to be high enough to have 2 going up at the same time constantly. But the science ships just allows you to get better vision on where you want to be expanding to before you even expand. Here I can see that I already have, it looks like 3 directions into my empire, so you could even rush a 3rd science ship if you really wanted to. I'm not going to here. I'm just going to wait. It looks like it's actually going to take a while. I'm just going to pump it up to fast.
We grow ever stronger.
Construction ship has finished. Next, I generally like to go for the energy. Research, obviously your research is really low early, but expansion is pretty expensive in the energy and mineral department, so I like to get those down and secured first. Yep. And just waiting for the science ship. Oh, that is a... oh, the construction's complete. Okay. So, here's a pretty important decision. Um, being wise, or be wise to be cautious. This is a pretty safe pick. Um, being aggressive makes people angry with you. Again, if you're going very early aggression, it's not a bad choice. But generally, I would go with it's wise to be cautious. Just it makes it so you generally initiate first contact instead of someone else. Yeah. Um, Science ship should be able to hire on that extra scientist now. Let's see. I'm gonna go for, let's see, 25 years. Yeah, I'm going to go for age just because these have nothing to do with scouting. And I'm gonna get this second planet, or second system surveyed. I'm going to expand out here. I'll have the mass extinction situation. Immediately going to go for this system so I can colonize it. I guess I should go over this for new players. This is your colony screen. This is actually my capital planet. A few things to know straight ahead. So, your starting planet will always start with some tile blockers. On your starting planet, you can remove these without the research that you would generally need to remove any tile blockers. The sprawling slums, there's always some equivalent on this on any start. It gives you an extra pop for 300 energy, or whatever the equivalent costs might be for your empire. That's a pretty strong thing early game. Obviously, you want to make sure you have your energy for it, but it's a nice thing to clear, especially if you're not going to be building buildings for some time. It gives you an extra pop faster. Let's see. Other things to keep in mind. You'll see here I have 8 extra district slots, but 3 of them are taken up by blockers, 5 of them are free. They're actually blocking 2 generator districts that I could build max and 2 agriculture districts that I could build max. But even if I had the size for the... Oh no, if I had the size I could build it, but I could only build 5 right now. Yeah, so other things to look at. Up here you have your stability. Higher this is, the more buffs you get on your home planet. Stability is influenced by your amenities, your housing, your crime, your unemployment, and your population approval rating. This will be, your prop approval rating will be determined by your rights in here, your living standards generally. As you can see here, the political power goes up for different types. You want to have whoever has the most political power in your empire, you want them to be the happiest, so you get the highest stability. So if your rulers, obviously, you're only going to have, like, look at this, I only have 2 ruler pops. But with the condition I have, they are giving me 700% extra political power. So they are actually, their happiness is actually worth 8 worker pops. So keeping them happy is important. If I had a empire where I had a lot more workers than rulers, it might be beneficial to look at switching my living standards to something that gives my workers more political power, even if it costs more consumer goods, because in the end that will give me more influence, or more, not influence, stability. Unemployment. So something to keep in mind here is my unemployed pops here are actually for my clerks. Clerks are nice, but they're kind of, at least in my opinion, a filler job. So again, with minerals being hard to get early, actually my amenities are bad. Because my amenities are bad and I started with commercial zones, I'm actually going to replace this commercial zone and get probably a hollow theater here. It's going to produce Unity and amenities. Both are really good. It is going to cost a little bit of consumer goods, so eventually I'm going to have to build an industrial district. But for now, I'm going to build the hollow theaters, and I am going to replace the commercial zones instead of building it extra because clerk jobs are kind of useless anyways, unless you're going for high trade value, which I'll get into in a little bit. Amenities, important to keep them up. They affect your happiness and your stability, so it's a double whammy on your stability. Makes your pops unhappy, and it flat out decreases your stability anyways. Or maybe it doesn't decrease it, but having extra amenities will increase it. So it's important to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is the different districts you can build. Since I'm going to be out of consumer goods here, because I'm building the hollow theaters, which are going to consume extra, I'm going to want to look at building an industrial district in the future. But I'm already using so many minerals in that I'd probably go mineral district first, or mining district first, and then go into an industrial district after that. City districts will increase your building slots. You will also increase those through technology and upgrading your capital building. But both of those are done through technology, so those are more about game progression. The city districts, you can build those whenever, but they'll kind of be going to waste if you're not needing the housing. Let's see. Oh yeah, so trade value. I guess I'll get into that as soon as I colonize this next planet. I have sent my construction ship to claim this system, which it will be doing now. And as soon as it claims that system, I'm going to build a colony ship. Granted that I have the resources for it.
We grow ever stronger.
I won't have the resources for it, but I could, if I really, really wanted to rush it, I could buy some alloys and some consumer goods. Now I can rush that colony ship, which I might as well do. You will, another thing to look at, your pop growth. So because I went mechanist, I get the robot production right away, which is from the roboticist job, which is from the robot assembly plant building, which is costing some alloys to do. But basically I get pop growth, which is, it fluctuates based on how much open room is on your planet, and a couple other things, where the assembly will be flat based on how many jobs you have. So I will constantly have +2 pop growth as long as I have this job. Also, as your population count goes up on your empire, the cost to finish a pop will go up. It goes up pretty slowly, but it is something to keep in mind, especially when you get into thousands of pops. It might be easier to steal some pops or planets from another empire than it is to grow that many pops. Yeah, that's it for now. Now I am building that colony ship. It should be built here in time. I generally ignore any anomalies that are below or above 100 research time, at least until I have found as far as I can go. And then when I'm starting to fill in the space back behind those choke points, that's when I'll start to do the longer anomalies. 720, gonna leave that for now. Also missing one alloy, there we go, can construct out there. But yeah, Habitable World Survey event. If you're going to be doing a lot of surveying, this one's a good one to take, or to accept. You don't always get that option to do that. It's kind of a random generated thing, but it is a good one to take if you're going to be doing the survey for it. Okay, So, I am rushing pretty quickly a new colony. So, expansion tree. Expansion or discovery are generally, unless you're doing something specialized, those are the two tradition trees that I would pick to go after first. Discovery is really nice, gives you boost to your research speed and also to your surveying speed. Expansion, however, if you're finding your influence cost is part of what is holding your expansion back, it gives you a decrease to that cost. It also gives you an extra pop starting on every colony, which is really big. So I'm going to go with expansion first. You might be wondering, why did I rush colonizing a planet instantly? And the very simple answer is more planets equals more pops growing at once. Yeah, that's the short and simple of it. As you will find very quickly, your resources might be part of your limit, but generally you'll be limited in resources not because you don't have enough buildings, but because you can't fill those jobs fast enough. So getting that slums cleared out fast, plus as you can see here, I actually only have one job left. That is when I would start building a district with maybe 1 or 2 slots left, just because each district has an upkeep as well as increasing your empire size. And if you're not going to be filling those jobs, there's no point in having them there until you are ready to fill them. So I don't wait up until the last second to do that, but generally with like 1 or 2 job slots open, that's when I'm going to build a district. Unless it's one of the industrial districts or something like that where you want specialists to fill it in, then build that as soon as possible, just because yeah, the specialists are going to immediately get filled from the workers because they want to move up the class, right? Yeah, but extra planets equals extra pop growth, which when pops are part of the major limiting factor, early pops faster is good. As well, this is a size 24 planet, which is going to be really good. As you can see here, it has dense jungle. I will not be able to clear that until I research it, unlike the ones on my home planet. Colony ship is ready. Going to, yep, giving out a trait. I'm going to colonize immediately. Again, don't care about the name for this. Construction ship. Over 300. Gonna leave it be for now. Here, there's a free alloy deposit. Those are pretty rare, and alloys are big. So I'm going to get that first, and then probably queue up a mining station. Again, 300, gonna leave it be. My mining district is done, and as you can see, I actually have clerks when I would probably rather have miners at this point, so I'm gonna focus it. It swapped off from my food. I don't really want that either, so I'm gonna swap from my clerks, decrease them, and then increase them back, and that gets rid of those clerks. Yeah, basically swaps their jobs. Pop growth speed, very big, gonna take that. Extra tradition, I haven't colonized yet. I'm gonna take this so I get an extra pop when that colonization is finished, which is great timing. I have built both of these buildings, so now I kind of just don't care. I'm gonna build mining stations and research stations. Let's see. Oh, can also go into my starbase. Generally, okay, for this case, where you have habitable worlds one jump away, the trade hub is perfect because you can have your collection range there already. If you don't have that, there's really no point in having that trade hub. I would go with a second shipyard just so you can build your ships faster. But that's a personal preference. But yeah, I will be showing how trade works here as soon as this colony finishes. We have a first contact. I'm going to move this out of the side, off the side, and assign an envoy. Envoys, unlike your other leaders, kind of don't matter. They don't have any special stats. I think that's something they've mentioned they might work on in the future, but it is not something that is planned for the next update, as far as I know. Okay, we have hostile aliens. It's good to see what strength they are. We have several thousand fleet strength, so I'm guessing I'm not going to be expanding in that direction anytime soon. So if my research ship gets out alive, I'm actually probably going to start surveying towards the north direction. Yep. And again, we have a free envoy, might as well sign it. Capital, again, only one pop free, or one pop job, and now both jobs are filled. I am going to build the industrial district. I'm gonna pause real quick. There's a lot of stuff happening right now. I'm going to build the industrial district. I have 40 mineral income, which is good right now, but my consumer goods is at +0, which is perfectly fine, except for the fact that I'm probably going to build a research labs here in the near future, and those are going to cost consumer goods, so I'm going to get that up ahead of time, especially because alloys is kind of a limiting factor right now due to the fact that I have robots that need those. We had progression here, nothing to do with that right now though. Just going to start surveying towards the north. We have a big multi-direction branching here. Here I would at least get this point. This point, as far as I'm concerned, is a very good point to expand out to, and not expand out to unless I find another choke point nearby. This splits the galaxy in two, sort of. People are not going to get through here to there very quickly unless they go through me, which gives me a lot of diplomatic strength as well. You don't want to have two systems leading to a single system when that single system is not in your empire but those two systems are, because you're going to have to build two defensive stations there if you're going to want a defensible position, where here you're only going to have to build one, and any enemy coming at you is going to have to build multiple to be able to block you off. So that is a very strong choke point right there. That being said, I'm going to start expanding towards that direction. Research. Here you might want to get into some more military focused things. Minerals would be really good to focus on, either of these, but for now I am going to go for the coil gun just because that is stronger ships. Here, the surveying speed probably the best option here. Research station output is going to be better when I have a lot more land, but for now 10% on very little research is, and that's only what's being gathered. So let's see, I'm getting 2 here and 3 here. 10% of 5 is not even a whole research point, so it's kind of useless right now. I'm going to instead get the survey speed. First contact progress, yeah. And we've surveyed here. Oh, it's actually one of the either trade or curator or artisan orders, which is nice. You can tell that because of the fact that it's a station and they're not hostile. So those two things combined lets me know that it's going to be one of those. Here I didn't actually take a good look at them. Based on the fleet strength, I would guess those are amoebas, maybe? I don't know. It's a Gaia world. It could be. I didn't really take a look at the ship design, so I couldn't say. Here I'm sitting on some extra alloys. I'm going to upgrade my ships. And I'm also gonna open up the fleet manager, and actually I'm gonna let them upgrade before I add them, but I will be adding a few more ships in the future. Ships have upgraded. Going to go back to the ship manager. You can either go from here, you can go through here, you can just flat out press F10. There's a lot of ways to get to it. I think you can do it up there. There's a lot of ways to get to it. Anyways, I'm gonna add a few more corvettes. Let's see, I can afford 2 more. Gonna reinforce the fleet. Another unity. Pop growth speed, influence cost. I'm doing okay on influence, so I'm just gonna go for the pop growth speed. Another leader leveled up. And colony's almost done. Industrial district's almost done, which will free up some more jobs. Because of the fact that this is such a good choke point, I'm going to bypass building collectors on those 2 nodes and go straight for expansion. Here we get research time that is more manageable. I'm still going to bypass it, but this would be one that's more feasible to start researching. Colony is finished. Right. So, we already, as you can see, we already have 2 pops. That fills both the colonist jobs. So I'm going to want to build another something on this planet. A district probably, not a job. Robot assembly plants would be nice, but again, if they're not going to have any jobs to fill, it doesn't really matter. I tend to go for 1 district of whatever I'm going to specialize this planet in. For this, it would be a pretty good planet to specialize in agriculture, but generally that's not really a problem, especially if you're going an empire where a decent portion of your population is going to be robots. So I'm just going to go for a mining district, and then it's nice to have at least 1 city district, but I don't have enough minerals to queue that up, so I guess I won't be doing that. But here we can see trade value, and I did say I was going to get into that. So I'll be doing that now. So how trade value works is, on any planet that isn't your capital, your trade value has to be collected, and it has to have a direct path back to your capital. So because I have this trade hub on my capital, it actually collects from this system plus 1 jump away. So it will be collecting the system. But let's say I didn't have that trade hub. As soon as I get trade on this planet and I want to collect it, which right now trade is through my trade policy, it's wealth creation. Every trade value that returns to my capital gives me 1 energy. So if you're not collecting your trade value, you're going to be missing out on a lot of energy value. So let's say I had a decent amount of trade value here, and I didn't have that the trade hub on my home system's shipyard. I would have to upgrade this station to at least a starport, right? The starport would collect that trade, and then I would need a direct route back to my capital, which here would only be 1 jump. And you fix that with the trade routes button here. You would click that, it brings up this display, which if there were a station here, you could left click it, and then you could, well, I guess you would left click it, click trade routes, it would bring this up, and then you could right click your capital station to link. Generally it does that automatically, but if you capture a system, sometimes it doesn't automatically do that. As you can see here, I have only 2 trade protection, which means if I collect anything more than 2 trade value here, I am going to start getting piracy, which starts as just taking some of that trade value away, and eventually will actually spawn pirate fleets. You can increase your trade production by building, let's close this, by either building some of the defense modules. As you can see here, it increases the trade production by 1, and the production range by +1, plus actually increasing the stats of the station itself. But the protection only from this station only goes out by 1, which is why there's 2 protection in this system. But the other way to increase your trade production is by having your fleets on patrol. And let's see, this fleet here, you can see, has 50 piracy suppression. Generally, corvettes have the highest just because they are so fast. Battleships give less suppression, but they're generally stronger ships. So you kind of want to even mix. Obviously, there's the destroyer and cruiser as well. Those will lie somewhere in between. But yeah, creating patrols will actually help reduce your piracy. Your fleet has to visit a system. It just has to visit it to apply its piracy suppression, and then as soon as it leaves, the piracy starts back up from 0 or whatever the max was, and starts heading slowly trending back towards your max. So if you visit there every once in a while, you'll keep suppressing the piracy. Okay, we have our first contact. It is the artisans. These guys help you with Unity, which they're going to be kind of expensive right now to commission an art piece. But as you can see here, it will increase your amenities and immigration pull on a planet if you buy this decision. You can also become their patron, which flat out increases your monthly Unity. But it costs 1,000 energy, and they'll ask you for that again in 10 years, which I just don't feel like doing for now. Still, oh, it's actually the crystal, or the crystal ships here. That's what it is. Okay, back to the colony. All right. So I would go agriculture district, but I don't really care. Doing mining district, already said that. Yep. Only 6 years in. I think I'm going to play up until we get factions. I'll talk about that, and then I'll probably end this video. A couple things to keep in mind. Empire size is almost up to 100. It's only at 71, but as I expand and build districts and get pops, that's going to increase. Once you go over 100, you'll start getting a penalty to your research and your Unity. It's not very steep, but it is something to keep in mind. Basically, you don't want to increase your sprawl unless you're getting something for it. Other things to keep in mind. So when I'm looking at a planet and I've got the resources to build stuff, but I'm not sure what I want to build yet, a few things to keep in mind are research is very powerful. So as we can see here, I have extra consumer goods. I have an extra building slot, and I only have 2 free jobs, so I am going to queue up a research lab because I have the economy to support it, and research is something very important to have going for you as early as you can get it. And basically keep doing that. As long as you have the economy to support it and the pops to fill the jobs and the building slots, it's a good idea. Okay, so I've surveyed here. I know I'm not going to be able to expand south this way, and I'm kind of just going to cede this area to whoever wants to claim it, and I'm going to start surveying up to the north because generally it looks like a better direction to start expanding. I've claimed this system, so I'm going to make sure I get that choke point before I start filling in my other systems. Here we have the crystalline entities. easy prey option is a quick and easy option to take, but the fascinating creatures, the crystalline study will actually, I think, give you, it's some empire boost that is permanent, and it might be extra, no, the extra minerals is the mining drones. It gives you something. So I'm going to go with that. Not necessarily do the situation yet because it's going to take 51 months, but it will be a nice little buff later in the game. Okay, so what I was going to get into, I think, was specializing colonies. Here, it's auto-designated. It's probably just a colony right now, yes, because I've only built one district on it. It doesn't know what I'm doing yet. But if you specialize your planets and really focus down on it, look at this. I can automatically get 25 extra mineral or 25% extra minerals from my miners if I specialize this as a mining world. Which means generally I want to fill out at least all those districts. Still don't have enough for the city district, which is fine. Just gonna let some time pass. This is 100 time anomaly, but it is right on where I'm going, so I'm just gonna bypass it again. Yep, just let some time pass. Naval cap. If you ever run into a problem with your naval cap, there's a few ways to increase it. You can build strongholds that will give you 4 per soldier job, and the base stronghold will give you 2 soldier jobs. So right there, that's an extra 8. That's kind of, again, population is probably one of the most limited resources you get. So if you are running into naval cap, what I like to do is upgrade to a starport, and I guess I'll show you here. I will fill a starport. So, little backtrack. As I said before, you have to have a starport to collect trade unless you have a trade hub collecting from a nearby system. So if I had a habitable planet, let's say in this system, I would upgrade it to a starport. That gets the collection for this system right here. I would then build 2 anchorages in the module slots. And each of those anchorages for now will give 4 naval caps, so 8 total. Later you'll get a research which boosts each anchorage by another 2. So that would be 12 naval cap right there. And generally that is how I collect my trade. That might not be how everyone does it, but that is how I like to do it, is build your, what are they called? Your anchorages on the planets that you want to be collecting trade from. Okay, I have completed the construction of this one place I wanted to lock down. So now I'm going to make sure that I can build backwards and fill in everything that I skipped over here. It would have been a good idea to expand out this direction too and get this planet colonized as soon as possible, but I'm just going to leave it be for now.
There is new information in the situation log.
Kind of just wanting to get to the point where I can show you factions and leave it be for the video. Again, 120, bypass it. I should have, oh no, my minerals are actually kind of low. Wait for that to fill in. Survey back this direction. I'm guessing this video is probably going pretty long actually. I took a long time on the creation menu, but it is what it is. Have to take that next. I like to finish a tradition before starting a new one just because Ascension perks are so strong. I guess I should probably play through at least to my first Ascension perk, which may or may not take place after getting factions. Um, let's see. I should have enough for the city district now, but I'm down to one job, so I'm just gonna build a mining district again. I am starting to run a low on minerals, so that works in my favor. Research station. Here, I would either expand here, or so I can get this system, or just keep going this way. The extra society's big.
We grow ever stronger.
I think I'm going to just expand. And if we look back here, we kind of get a weird triangle point here. You want to at least expand out here, and if you can, expand both ways to extra choke points. Robum, this will be a big thing to take early, as well as this. I'm just going to survey out this way. This science ship over here can... See, we're getting into a weird tangly thing here, which is why this choke point is essential, and anything after it is kind of iffy on whether you're going to be able to hold it or not. Oh, but we see that this links up here, so again it kind of defaults down to this point and this point.
Our lookouts have detected an anomaly.
I'm gonna expand out to here, probably get out to there, and then yeah, survey this, and then start heading back in this direction.
What have we here?
I have upgrades for my ships, as well as enough alloys to fill in 2 or 3. I just clicked research an anomaly, which I've not been doing all this time. Kind of just a habit, because it was at 100. So I'll just let that go. It's almost done anyways. Debris field, extra minerals there, sweet. Construction ship. Again, I'm going to build out to here at the very least. Or was it? Yeah, out to there at the very least. It would be nice to get out to here, just because, again, it forces more, but I kind of want to get this filled in before I try to get out there, just because this is more of, or this is still defensible, it just gives them an equal defensibility, which I would rather have that than having someone else get this area back here. I'm waiting on this to finish surveying, so I will build that. Starbase upkeep, empire size. Decrease the empire size. Skip the... okay. Here... okay, factions have been founded. Here we get this is all cut off. This is not going to hook up anywhere. So again, that point right there is a really good place to expand out to. Colony. Okay, here I'm finally going to build that habitation and another mining district. My home planet, again, could do another industrial district. I have the alloys to upkeep it. My consumer goods are bad. Amenities are fine. Housing's fine. Jobs are needed. That's a long one. Don't want to do that. Here on the homeworld, my food is kind of getting low. And your capital, you're not going to be able to super specialize just because of the capital is fixed. So here is kind of where I kind of randomly fill in whatever I need. So food will be a good one there. Construction ship has finished there and is ready to go out to there. Oh, factions have founded. Okay. So factions. Factions now give you unity. They used to give you influence. So keeping my factions happy will be good. We see here, this faction, their only thing they want right now is AI to be allowed, which I do have. This one, oh, they want aggressive first contact protocols. So here, if I really wanted to get into that, oh, that's edicts, which I haven't shown yet. I should show that soon. More philosophy. No. First contact protocol would be aggressive. Aggressive would make this faction happy. I don't know if I necessarily want that right now, but increasing that would give me extra unity, which could be important. Right, edicts. So edicts, your edicts fund is influenced mostly by research and by, I guess, by your ruler level. I didn't realize that before. You can get there by, you used to be able to click on the unity or the influence, but now that brings up claims. Maybe it's always done that. Anyways, edicts you can get there from here on the side. So basically how this works is up to your edicts fund, you can pick an edict that will give you a certain modifier. As soon as you go over that fund, it actually will start costing unity upkeep. So until you go up to there, it will only be consuming your fund, which is basically free unity. As soon as you go over it, so here I have 18 for 25 fund. I could take this edict and suffer no consequences for it. If I were to take another 18 over it, that would get me to a 36, which would put me 11 over, so I would be using 11 unity per month on my edicts. Energy, it doesn't, there's some edicts that just cost a resource. These will cost that resource. It doesn't go towards the edict fund, it just goes straight to that resource. So I could have a upkeep of 27 energy per month, which I can't afford right now, to do any of these 3 edicts, which I'm not going to do. I guess I didn't show planet decisions either. Basically, they're small little things you can do to your planets. You unlock more throughout the game, especially depending on what empires you are. Generally, these are kind of or you kind of don't really use these unless you really need to. Especially like expel excess population, you really want to do only if you're overcrowded, which if you're managing your plans correctly shouldn't be a problem, but it can become a problem. Always keep an eye on your housing. I like to keep at least 5 to 6 free housing over what I have. So yeah, 5 to 6 free housing. The 10 housing here is nice. It might be a little overkill, but I don't really mind it because the city district is giving me the building slot as well. So yeah. I am starting to run out of districts, so it would be a good idea to clear these out in the near future. But I'm not going to do that for right now. Keep an eye on my consumer goods. You don't necessarily need your consumer goods to be super positive, but you don't want them to be negative either. You kind of want, if you've got too many consumer goods income, it means you're not getting enough scientists out. And if you've got too low, it means you obviously need to just build some more.
Research complete.
Okay, my tradition should be finishing here soon. Here, Gene Clinics gives you a building that will increase your pop growth speed, so that's a nice one. 19 months, okay. Survey, probably not gonna go past here, so I'm gonna start going up this way. Sorry for the yawn there. Here, only one free job again. Gonna build a district. And here, amenities are low, right? You think one is positive. You kind of want to be like, amenities being positive is actually a good thing. So going overkill on the amenities is worth it. I'm gonna build the hospital theaters there. That also gives 2 new jobs to work. Oh, actually, as you can see here, this is not connected anywhere, so I am kind of free to just leave this land for however I want. So I'm actually as soon as that service finishes, just because I've already queued it, I'm gonna head back this direction and start expanding back here. Probably won't get very far into it, but that is what I would generally do. Either that or build another construction ship. I do have enough influence income. Oh, I was talking about the power projection earlier when I was talking about Imperial. So how that works is, right now I have 8 fleet size. I have 8 fleet capacity to 88 size. So I'm only getting, let's see, 18, and I get a 100% modifier from somewhere. I don't know where that's coming from, but basically I have 18% of my my Navy coverage, which is the ratio from that to that. Because of that, I am getting 18% of the 3 influence I could be getting, which comes out to 0.54. So building more ships would increase my influence income. Of course, the limiting factor is alloys, which I can actually afford, so there's no point in not bumping it up to probably about here. And as you'll see, a small empire will get that filled quite a bit faster. Here comes one ship, already up to 22%. Here comes another ship, 25%. And I think this might be the last ship I've queued. I don't remember how to... No, I queued quite a few. There's 27%. Okay, here's my last tradition pick. Ascension perks. Okay. So here, most of these, I'm not gonna lie, pretty crappy, unless you're going something very specific. Shared Destiny would be very good if you're trying to do something with a lot of envoys. Executive Vigor is, that one's kind of useless, I'm not gonna lie. 100 extra edicts fun is at most saving you 100 unity, and that's if you're maxing out your edicts. So 100 unity compared to some of these buffs is nothing. Mastery of Nature lets you do a decision on your planets that costs energy and influence to add 2 district size to it. You can do that once per planet, which is pretty big. The big 3 I would go for are Technological Ascendancy, Mastery of Nature, or if you're going something that's very pop hungry and you don't care about having a bunch of varying species, Nihilistic Acquisition basically gives you the despotic, or what are the spoilers? I can't remember what they're called. It basically gives you that, but it costs a Ascension perk instead of a Civic slot, which, depending on how you feel, you have 8 Ascension perks and 3 Civic slots at most, so it could be a decent trade-off. You could also wait a little bit. There are a few that require researches to be done. So Engineered Evolution requires gene tailoring. The Flesh is Weak requires droids, which, because I already have robotics, I could be pretty close to getting. And Mind Over Matter requires psionic theory. Either of those 3 could be your first take as well. World Shaper allows Gaia Worlds, that's a pretty decent one, but you have to have another Ascension perk. And most of the rest of them are going to require at least one other Ascension perk. So I would recommend one of these 3, or waiting for your pop changing Ascension perk if you're going that way. But I'm just going to take Technological Ascendancy. It goes well with every build just because research goes well with everything. You need technology. So yeah, I'm just going to go that. And I think that will be where I'm ending off this, this video. Um, I hope you all took something away from this. Maybe I pointed out something new. Oh, one last thing. I should get into the market and sectors. Those two things are pretty big. So the market, right now, it's just, basically you can get rid of extra resources and buy some for energy. You have your ratios right here. The market fee, um, it goes into this calculation. So these should be different, or should have a difference of about 60%, I think. That's how the market fee works. Because you're selling it for 30% less than what it's worth, and you're buying it for 30% more than what it's worth. And that difference just disappears into thin air. Um, you can also set up trades to go automatically and stuff like that. Eventually, when you get the galactic community, which you have to meet a decent percent of the alien empires to start that, you'll be able to pass the decision to give the galactic market, which allows for slave trade, which is good to take advantage of if you're trying to buy a lot of pops or if you're trying to get rid of a lot of pops. It's a good way to get energy or to get pops. Obviously, you have to have slaves, which some empires might dislike, but once that happens, right now the only thing determining the prices here is if I buy or if I sell. Once the galactic market passes, it will be based on what everyone's buying and what everyone's selling. So if one person decides to sell all their alloys, the alloy sell price is going to dip, and the buy price is also going to dip. Meanwhile, if someone's deciding to buy all the consumer goods, the consumer price is going to go way up, and that might incentivize someone to start selling some of their excess. Pretty interesting interaction there. One other thing, planets and sectors. This is actually a pretty unique mechanic that I'm not sure if many people know about. So you might be wondering, why would I want to make a separate sector from my starting base? And the simple thing is, if you have a massive empire that is too big to handle, you can create a new sector, which I guess I could do. Yeah, so I'm gonna create a new sector. Where do I? It's been a while since I've actually done this because I usually micromanage everything. Oh, here. So I could. Oh no, because it is in my home sector, I can't do anything. So you have to have a planet outside of your home sector to create a new sector. But what you can do is you can actually tell them to auto build, and it will have an AI tell the planets in that sector to focus on one of these four things. You can do research, manufacturing, production, or balance, which will kind of balance all three. And then you can offload some of your stockpile to that sector to automatically use it. I think you can allow sectors to automatically colonize habitable planets inside their system, as well as build up the construction ship buildings in them. And every sector can have a governor, which will give you a pretty decent buff on your planets. As well, you might find a point where you are full on something, probably or minerals or energy, and instead of selling it, you can actually offload it to your sector. They will have their stockpile is as big as yours, I believe. They can store as much as you can. And that is the resource that they decide to use to automatically build the buildings and stuff on those planets. You do have to keep in mind the AI is not as smart as a person when it comes to managing the economy. So generally you don't want to do sectors, or the automatic sectors at least, but it's something to keep in mind if you have an empire that is literally too big to handle. There's also a way to create vassals from sectors, which, yeah, is what it says it does, which with Overlord coming out and having specialized vassals, that could actually be a pretty strong thing, is to create a sector, split it off, and then create a vassal from that, where that vassal is one of the specialized vassals that is coming in Overlord. But yeah, so, and you'll transfer to the local stockpile, but I believe any resources the sector generates goes back towards your normal stuff, at least unless you don't vassal it or create a vassal, which then it's its own empire. But the only way this stockpile increases is if you manually send it or set up a monthly sending. Oh, and yeah, you can create a shared stockpile, so you don't even have to do it per sector. Yeah. So how you would create a sector is, let's say there was a planet here. I'm going to pretend that this planet is here, is out there. This button would, or no, this, somewhere in this menu, it might be this button here, would turn into a plus, and it would say create new sector, and you can create a sector there. And then a sector will branch out 4 jumps away from whichever planet you decide should be the capital of that sector. And if there's land already claimed by another sector, it will remain in the first sector, but there is a way to transfer land back and forth if it is within range of both sectors. Let's see, anything else that I need to cover? Expansion Planner, I actually haven't gotten into this very much, but it shows you some of your options. So maybe you don't like looking over your empire and seeing, oh, here's a green planet or whatever, and you just want to see, here's some of my options. This one has a rare deposit on it. It's this size. I just want to colonize it. Obviously, it has to be in your borders, which it looks like none of these are, but that is an option. I don't really use it, but yeah, there's that. Actions, claim, species, leaders. Leaders, so you can manage all your leaders here. Species. You can set rights here. Eventually, you can create templates, which is when you get the either the robotic research, which I am doing now. The robo points will give me 2 species points for my robots, and there's also gene tailoring points, which you can do here. You can also set rights. You can set your default rights for any new species that come in. Right now I have them as default slaves. You could bump them up to residents if you want them to be a little bit happier, but they will cost some more upkeep. Things like that. Anything else? Oh, here you can reform your government. You can change types and civics. There are a few civics that you can't drop. The barbaric despoilers, that was what it was. There's a few you can't drop. If you take barbaric despoilers, you can't remove it. You can't add it later either. Same thing with anglers. But these, I could drop these anytime. I could change my authority. But it does cost, oh, it's influence now, right. It would cost 800 influence, which I don't have. That's an option. And I think that is everything I want to show. Contacts, eventually this will show other empires. You can sort by their strength, their relationship with you, if they're in a federation, other things like that. Yeah, 15 years in, it's been a decently long video. I will end it off there.